Good evening to everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. You are with Reverend Harris once again. We are at the studio getting ready to shoot another TV series called Rev Talk. We're at New Life Church of God here in West Fresno. Well, I rename Fresno to Mississippi Fresno. And we'll have a special show on that just for whatever reason. But we have a special guest with us today, a sister who I highly respect, a pioneer in the community. Her name is Jennifer White. I believe she worked with Will Smith at one time. She's very conscious about what's going on in the community. And what's so unique about today is that I usually do the interviewing, but she is going to interview me today on my TV show. Because we've been having a lot of shootings, a lot of police brutality all over the world, Ferguson, New York, and the whole country is going up in flames right now. So she called me last night saying that there's going to be a town hall meeting that she'd like me to attend to. And so I'm just going to go ahead and we'll jump right into this right now. I know that tonight that we have a radio show tonight, myself and Dr. Kennedy tonight. And I hope that you can tune in. Go to Floyd D. Harris Jr. Facebook, Floyd D. Harris Jr. Facebook, or Google my name or what have you. Go to Blog Talk Radio and you will find the link. And tune in tonight at 8 o'clock. We also have a press conference tonight at the Fresno Police Department. Today is International Human Rights Day, and we've been having a lot of problems with human rights and constitutional rights. So Miss Jennifer White, welcome to the Rev Talk TV show. And I know you didn't believe that I had a studio, but seeing is believing. Seeing is believing.
Yes, it is.
And it may be small, but it's mine. So, we're independent over here at New Life Church of God. Also, my senior pastor, Pastor Paul McCoy, is a senior pastor here, and I'm the assistant pastor. So, welcome to the show and talk to us today.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jennifer White. I am a freelance journalist. I do have my own community blog at San Joaquin Valley Community Journal, as well as an independent freelance writer for the California Advocate newspaper, which is the Central Valley's only African-American newspaper. Basically, one of the biggest stories that's hitting the newspapers, radio, television as of today is the violence that is occurring due to police brutality amongst African American men. We are having a huge issue, not only locally, but nationally, it's also worldwide. Reverend Harris, this problem is not a new problem. It's not a new activity. It's not a new situation. If we want to go back through history and talk about some of the biggest situations that has happened in regards to police brutality that has brought out protests, riots. We can go as far back as the 60s when they were rioting for peace and justice. You can go back and look back at Rodney King after he was pulled over and there was a cameraman videotaping a dozen policemen brutalizing Rodney King. You can look back at and still most of them, if not all of them, were not indicted. You've got Trayvon Martin down in Florida, where basically he stated he did shoot him, calling it self-defense, yet he was shot in the back. You've got Michael Brown, who was killed over a cigar, okay? And killed to the point to where the policeman was not indicted. You've got Tamar Rice, the young boy who was killed in the park having a play gun, even though the police were taught that play guns have orange tips, and this gun had an orange tip. Tell me and give me your thoughts about the aftermath of these situations, how the communities around the world are so ignited and so upset in disagreement, that they want to riot, they want to protest. Well, they're protesting by rioting, it's coming down to the fact that they're destroying our community, they're destroying Black businesses. But it seems like that's what they feel is going to get the message across to stop the violence. But talk to me about your feelings as an African American male, as a father, as a son, as a clergyman, on what you think has happened to our society and what it's going to take to fix these problems, or at least get them under control.
Wow, those are a lot of good questions for me, huh? She's really pitching them to me today, TV audience. Well, Jennifer, me, I have to go back in history. I have to go back 400 years ago when Black folk was in slavery, and we somewhat still are in slavery today. The white man had never ever intended for us to be where we are today. When we look at policy, when we look at procedures, when we look at the laws and the Constitution that was created for this America, the Constitution really did not include us. It excluded us.
So I didn't go back far enough.
You didn't go back far
to the
enough.
1600s, to the 1600s, 1700s. Okay, I understand. Go
And
ahead.
so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it there and I'm going to bring it up till today.
Okay.
Because it's very, very important that we understand the history to understand the future of where we are in 2014 today. So when we look at how slavery, how we were brought over into this country as Black folk, we were brought up under the most brutal hatred of any other race that I can think of. We were brought over here on boats. We were made to work on plantations. We were whipped. We were lynched. We were burned alive. Some of our men, you can see pictures where they have whips on their back, and just because the color of their skin. And so when we take it there and we take it all the way up to 1921 back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, you will see then that Black Wall Street in 1921, that Black people didn't have a police department. It was only white people who policed both sides of the tracks. Because you got to remember that railroad track separated us, right?
I've been told about that.
You've been told about that, okay. And it still separates us here in Mississippi, Fresno. So my point is that, so when you look at 1921, right, you will see that Klansman, Nazi mentality still exists today in our police departments. Because when you look at 1921, you will see that it was those white men who made policy, who made all the rules, and we were just made to go by them. They didn't ask us our feeling, what do you think about this law? We were just made to abide by what they were doing. And so when you leave there, because Tulsa, Oklahoma is a TV series by itself, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of that. And then we go all the way up from 1921 all the way up to, let's say, Emmett Till, where we had the young brother, I believe he was from Chicago, I believe, and went to, I believe it was Mississippi. And so he became lynched and murdered, right? And then when we look at the judicial system during that time when Emmett Till, a young little black kid who whistled at a white woman, the jury was all white, right? And the uncle who seen the men that came in the house to take Emmett out, right, said those are the men. But when we look at the judicial system, the same judicial system we have today is the same judicial system we had back in 1950, right? So all of those men got off, right, with all white jury, and everybody know that they lynched that young man. It took 50-some years to get justice for Emmett Till. And it took Congress to reopen the case, right, to go back and get the one who was still alive, right? So we leave the 50s and now we're going into the 60s now, right? So therefore, now you got all the black revolutionaries. Now you got Dr. King, you got Malcolm X, you got, don't forget our women now. Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, all of these pioneers who made a major impact into the civil rights movement, right? And so when we talk about the Black Panther Party, all through the 60s, you will see how the police department and the fire department played a role in shooting down our women and shooting down our men, right? This is all coming from the government, right? The same government we're dealing with today. And now, when we talk about the 60s, we have to understand that the 60s is a teaching point for us today, right? The Black Panther Party was a community. All they wanted to do was police their community, feed their community, educate the community, and do everything that was independent that anybody else wanted to do. But what happened to them? The same government today that's shooting us down, lynching us today, is the same government, right, that assassinated them, right? So here we are today. Here we are today in 2014. We had Oscar Grant in Oakland, California, who was handcuffed, turned over, and shot in the back. Oscar Grant, a little kid. Now, notice that these are all black children. These are not white children. Not to say that no police brutality has never happened to white children, but the majority has happened to black children, right? You don't see black police officers going out shooting white kids 20, 30, 40, 50 times. But you see white officers coming in to our communities, gangster style, Nazi style, KKK style, and lynching our little babies over cigarettes, catching a bark, all that silly type of stuff that's going on now. But you ask me the question, what is missing? Well, what is missing is leadership. Leadership in our community. The problem is that the black man has been absent on the sidewalk. We have to get justice on the sidewalk. Because you can't say we can get justice in the court system, but if that's the case, we would have got justice for Mike Brown and Ferguson. If that was the case, we would have got justice for many Emmett Till when he got murdered and lynched, right?
And I do want to state that in regards to what you're saying about having a fair trial and making sure we have enough people in the jury. Michael Brown, you have a total of 12 jurors. 9 of them were white. 3 of them were black. You only needed 9 to agree.
Well,
Same thing with Eric Garner, the reason why everyone was so upset. You have 14 jurors. 9 of them, I'm sorry, you had 14 white jurors. You only needed 9 to pass the vote, so that they must be in agreement. You needed 12 out of 14 of them. So now you've got not a jury of your peers if you're going up there and you're black. Going against the white.
Well, you know why we don't have a jury of
unless they're talking about the jury of the peer is for the policeman who shot them.
Right. The reason we don't have those of us that's on the jury, because our children are violated at the age of 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 10 and 15. So how can we have a jury of our peers when they become adults? They're already sentenced to prison. They're sentenced to YA, right? So they can't even be voters in this country, right? So when we look at this, this is a very orchestrated piece that's going on across the country. Now, let's talk about Fresno. Mississippi Fresno at that. Because Fresno, this is nothing new to us. We've been dealing with this stuff for the past 25, 30 years in this community. If it had not been for Mako, if it had not been for the Brown Berets, if it had not been for National Network in Action, we are the ones in the trenches that's that's trying to educate the chief of police, Dyer and his crew and his clan on what is good community policing, right? And so we are the ones that's out here making them get business cards. It took us 2 years to get the Fresno Police Department to get business cards just to give to the community. So this is the type of negotiations that we have to go into when we start dealing with policy, when we start dealing with sensitivity training and things like that. And so what concerns me now is that I'm glad to see people concerned. I'm glad to see different ministers and pastors that want to step up to see things better. But I caution people is that you need to educate yourself first about the issues that's going on. Because if you're going to go to the chief of police and he's going to sing you a good song and dance a good dance and make it seem like everybody in the community is wrong and they are right, we have statistics right now to show you that there's been many people in Fresno who has been shot unarmed. And then the question came to me, well, how come Fresno hasn't gotten all the attention like Ferguson has gotten? Well, we have gotten attention. The only difference between Ferguson and Mississippi Fresno is that Fresno hasn't went up in flames. And the Chief Dyer and the City Council and everybody should be thanking us for containing the community to let us work with them and negotiate different policies and procedures in this community to have a better quality of life. So there has been a lot going on behind the scenes, but again, I'm going to cautious our ministers and our preachers. Do not sell out our people. Do not sell out our children for some chump change or what have you. If you don't know what you're talking about, you need to say, I don't know, shut up, learn from those of us who've been out here dealing with this stuff, and then let's collaborate in partnership. But if you're going to go and negotiate with this government and sell out our people, we will expose you.
Okay. Obama wants to put millions of dollars into providing cameras to every policeman. What are your thoughts about that, knowing that we've had people with cameras who videotape, like I said, Rodney King, and nothing happened other than you infuriated people because no one was indicted. Right. Same with Eric Garner, who was standing right there, and this policeman was not indicted with the camera, and this policeman still was not indicted, using an illegal chokehold, who they tried, when they aired it and put it onto the jurors' notes, they called it some type of legal self-defense hold instead of calling it a chokehold, which is an illegal thing that look exactly the same. Yet you still have cameras rolling, and you can see that he used an illegal chokehold. No one was indicted. What are your thoughts in regards to the expenditure of that type of money on cameras that people have already that the footage is not being taken seriously?
Well, here's our concerns with the videotaping. You know, I'm one of the founders of Cop Watch in Fresno. We brought Cop Watch to Fresno. Andrea out of Berkeley, because we was trying to advocate for independent police auditor for many years, and we just never got it until the police from the police department would beat the hell out of a homeless guy up on Bullard and Blackstone. Then all of a sudden we need a police independent auditor. But before then, it's like you guys just a bunch of bugles, you anti-police, and we're trying to educate the community, educate people about policy, educate people about wrongdoing. This is about education. Here's the piece about the cameras. The police cannot police the police. The police cannot police the police. I'm going to say that one more time. And if I was in church, my congregation would say amen. The police cannot police the police. Chickens don't run with chicken hawks. So therefore, when you said body cameras, it's a good soundbite, but who's going to be examining the footage? Another police? So this is where we're at right now, because we have no trust in police right now. We have no trust in community policing and you coming into our hood and putting guns at us and making us sit on the ground and disrespecting our women in our community and our children. All of a sudden now we got cameras all over Fresno. Matter of fact, I was on camera down at the Justice Corner and the chief of police was on Ray Appleton looking at me at the Justice Corner. But is Fresno any safer than it is with cameras, without cameras? No. It's another job to give somebody, right, to justify, oh, well, we got cameras now, right? And so, what is the camera going to do? Is it going to stop a cop from pulling the trigger? No. Because it's the color of our skin that we're hated on. It's the color of our skin. We are a threat. There's always been a threat to this country as a black man. So it's easy to just eliminate us and say, I felt threatened, that's why I put 20 bullets in it. If you get that darn scared to be a cop, then maybe you need to go be a milk truck driver or something. Because it's just ridiculous to keep saying, oh, I felt threatened for my life. He has no gun, he has no weapon. Oh, but we got it on film. Rodney King was on film. What happened? Nothing. So therefore, we have to understand right now as a community that we need to take it a step further. Okay, great, get the body camera. But when a police officer shoots someone, he needs to, and she needs to be drug tested right on the spot. I mean, right on the spot. Because we have a lot of police officers in this country, in this town, Mississippi, Fresno, that I know for a fact, and people have told me, homeless people have told me, that these cops come up to them, their eyes be going all around like this, in the middle of the night. But who is policing them? See, this is the problem now that we have in America. We put too much money into the police department. This police department, Fresno, get 80% of the city's budget. We got parks closed down, swimming pools closed down, kids ain't got nothing. But the police department got all these little toys, helicopters, guns, tasers, and everything else, robo-cops, even got a police tank downtown that rolled in our community here about 9 months ago. A military tank. But we don't have no parks. We have nothing for our children. So no, the cameras is not going to stop a cop from blasting a little black baby. I'm sorry, it's not. Because someone is going to edit the video. Just like they edit Mike Brown video.
Interesting. Now, I just heard you mention drug testing, and you know, as far as drug testing goes, after a circumstance, not only drug testing, maybe mental health as well. I'm looking at some research that I've done on Tamar Rice, the young 12-year-old boy that was shot in Cleveland that was holding a gun, that had an orange tip, which again, the police were trained to know that any gun with an orange tip is not a real gun. Basically, after doing some research, it was noted that that same policeman had resigned from his position because he was being told that he was emotionally unstable and unfit for duty. Nevertheless, he went straight to Cleveland and was hired. Are they not testing them before they get hired, mentally as well as physically?
We have cops in this country that can murder someone in one city, retire, get his pension, then move to the South and get a job. We have no tracking system of cops right now who are rogue cops. Now, let me say this, because I think people get me twisted, all right? I'm not saying that every cop on the street in America is bad, but you'd be a fool to think that they ain't some bad. Because if it wasn't, we've been having all these shootings and killings right now, right? So we as a community across the country, especially black and brown people, we have to form collaborations and partnerships and come up with a system that we can police and track these cops that's killing folks. I mean, how is it that you can track a gangbanger, right, but we can't track a road cop?
And that's one thing I was going to know. Do you think all policemen are bad, or we just have some bad apples in the bunch?
We have bad apples in a bunch, and we have bad leadership at the top, right? I mean, just here in Fresno, right, we have something called bringing broken neighborhoods back together. It sounds like a wonderful thing. Well, my question is, first of all, who broke the neighborhood? Who put the drugs in our community? Who put the cocaine in our community? Who put the guns in our community? See, now if we're going to spend 80% of our tax money to the police department, why in the hell they can't figure out who's bringing in the guns and the dope? You cannot have here in Fresno, the Fresno Police Evidence Department with guns, dope, and money stolen out of the Police Evidence Department here in Mississippi, Fresno. You got a key to the evidence department? Because I sure ain't got a key. And I'll bet you that drugs, dope, and money went back into West Fresno and planted on our babies in the community and guns and said, oh, they committed these crimes. They've never found the guns, dope, and money. But then the grand jury said, well, you know what, you need a better process of security evidence department. I mean, this is ridiculous right now. But I'm glad to see in my lifetime black and brown people and all people coming together across ethnic lines right now to see that what we've been saying over 400 years of slavery now is affecting everybody across the globe, affecting everybody right now. Is that a good thing? Yes, it is a good thing. Because as long as we keep saying it and it's not happening to nobody else, nothing is going to get done.
And tell me who or what organization approached you about doing a special protest right after the Eric Garner trial and decision?
Well, I'm the international president of National Network in Action. I believe that I get my orders from God, and when I see something, I'll pray about it, and then I move forward on it. We have great organizations here in Fresno that we work with and we collaborate. We know how to, when something go down, we already know. There's things already, this is what you do, A, B, C, D, F, G. And so Justice Corner here in Fresno, which is 5 minutes away, that's where we rally at. We're thinking about going up north now to River Park, maybe Clovis, to let folks know that we will be heard and we will not be silent, because these are our children that's being murdered and lynched here in this country. A mother do not have to go through labor for 9 months to bury her child to be shot by police. That's not why she went through labor. And that has to stop, and it will stop when we all unite as one community.
Okay. These indictments, these non-indictments of the police have sparked protests around the world. From these protests, you do see rioting in certain cities. Talk to me a little bit about how you feel about that. Is that helping? Is that hurting? Is that sending a message to the police? What do you think the outcome of these protests should be?
Well, I can't say what other folks should do and what other folks should not do. I tell folks they should do what they feel is best in their heart. It's their community. If they want to burn it, they burn it, right? If they don't want to burn it, they don't have to burn it. But whatever they feel in their heart that they need to do it. Because you're going to be responsible if it's good or bad, right? So if we're trying to talk to people in a nice, calm way and you're not hearing me, then maybe I need to step on your toes so you can hear what I'm saying. So it's the rioting, the looting is a way of sending a message out to around the world. I mean, this has bootleg. This is bigger than Michael Brown. This is bigger than Oscar Grant. This is bigger than Reverend Harris. This is bigger than Jennifer White. This is a mass problem that's been going on over 400 years ago, has now caught up to us now, and no one wants to talk about white and black issues, race relations right now, right? Because I'll tell you like this, I'm Malcolm X. I'm just going to be clear with you. I'm Malcolm X. I tell people all the time, there's one thing that